everyone. It's Ryan Fowler with Tim Costello, Jordan Kurtz, Intergame Group live every Saturday. We have an interesting one today. We're going to look more at this Dr. Ramani clip, a continuation of that interview last week, because there's just so much juicy stuff in it. And narcissism really has become quite common in our society. You're going to hear some figures from her that are pretty shocking. And the fact is, everyone here knows someone with strong narcissistic traits, and everyone watching this, me and including everyone on this podcast, most likely knows a few narcissists, like actually problematic, if not full-blown narcissistic personality disorder. It's become increasingly common in our society. There's reasons for that. So we're going to look at the different type of narcissists. A lot of people don't understand the different types that are out there. Dr. Ramani is going to go into that. And then we are going to take our take on, is President Donald Trump a narcissist, and to what degree, if he is. So going to be a good show today. But before we dive into everything, Jordan and then Tim, introduce yourselves. Welcome to the show.
Hello. I'm Jordan Kurtz with Jordan Kurtz Hypnosis. And like these two, I help you find and locate all the limiting beliefs in your head so that the narcissists, when they attack and when they enter your life, you are, well, for A, you can recognize what they're doing, and B, you have the strength to walk away. That's, I think, narcissists
to the extent
have a way.
You can. Yeah.
Yes. Or
and
at
if
least,
you can't, how do you manage them? If you have to have them, what if your boss is a narcissist, right?
Exactly. So I think it's, no matter who you're dealing with, it's always critical to have these limiting beliefs removed from your head. But in particular, when you're dealing with narcissists who can be particularly insidious, you really need to have a strong inner world in order to deal with them in some capacity. And so we help you guys find and eliminate those bad beliefs so that those kinds of people, you are protected from them. You know how to protect yourself from them. So looking forward to the show.
All right.
Excellent. Now, the interesting thing about narcissism is that you could be a person who has every single narcissistic trait and be fully diagnosed by a competent psychiatrist or psychologist as a person with narcissistic personality disorder. Or you could be like the other 8 billion people on the planet who may have 1 or 2 narcissistic trait for whatever reason to some degree. So narcissism really isn't what a lot of people think it is, when in reality, we're going to talk about that pretty heavily. Narcissistic behavior to a bad degree or a problematic degree is very destructive in nature. In other words, that person is so damaged as they were growing up in their youth, 0 to 8, mostly up to 14 for a lot more, and then probably finished off 22 to 25 years old. Don't change the rest of their life. And they need a narcissistic supply to make themselves, and when I say feel good, it's going to be in quotes, feel good, because they never do feel good. But it allows them to function and move forward a little bit at a time as they're destroying things around them. And by the way, to most people, it doesn't look like they're destroying things around them, which is the insidious part of what we're going to talk about today. And there you go. And you guys know me from other podcasts, so don't need to tell you my name. It's right there at the bottom of my face.
Tim Costello, Hypnosis. Yes. So, all right. Yeah, narcissism, pretty complex. It manifests itself in different ways. And many people on the outside don't even know the narcissist is a narcissist, for sure, Tim. People close to the narcissist, they're going to see a lot of damage being done. So some of them won't even know that person's a narcissist, though. So, all right. So let's go ahead and dive in. We've got a clip to bring up, Jordan.
Yes, I do.
And
And
so
the new next says, "Hello, fellas. Happy rainy day here in Oklahoma." The new next, I am up in Oklahoma City, so you must be south of me because that's where all the rain is. No rain here.
got it. So yeah, welcome to the show, everyone. Denise D, the new next, Crafting and Crime Daily. It seems like you're a regular now. We appreciate you coming. So,
And that is Rebecca.
Yes. So she was watching your show, where you craft the pens, I believe.
Yeah, we actually met at a retreat, and she proposed. I haven't truly accepted yet, so she's actually my sister wife. So she gets all of my gaming time, and Carrie gets everything else by her definition.
That's hilarious. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So this gentleman is interviewing Dr. Ramani, professor out of UC Davis, and considered one of the world's foremost authorities on narcissism. So let's go ahead and dive in.
LA is
LA, right? Yeah.
Need a little volume.
What is the percentage of narcissists
There you
in the
go.
country right now, do you think?
This is a number. I mean, I'm going to spitball a number because we have never gotten good prevalence statistics. So here's the problem. There's this thing called narcissistic personality disorder that I don't even concern myself with. It is a clinical diagnosis that can only be issued by a mental health practitioner who spends enough time with a client to actually unfurl these patterns.
And no narcissists are going to a therapist.
They're often not. And when they do, they're going in for a backdoor reason, like addiction, depression, optics,
court order,
being forced, ultimatum by a spouse, that kind of thing. So, and a lot of therapists don't issue it because it's stigmatizing diagnosis and insurance. Well, you know what I'm saying? It's the whole world of diagnosis is messy. And usually the way we figure out the prevalence of a disorder is what we call epidemiological studies, where people are brought in and like they're actually just put through the interviews and they're anonymous and it's not going on any record, right? Those studies of NPD show 1 to 6% prevalence, right? But again,
in the country,
in the country,
which is like the strong on the spectrum of narcissism. They're at the highest.
They're at the most. They're in the research studies. I can't even say they're at the highest.
Right.
And it's one thing I do want to correct is that just because someone has NPD doesn't mean they're more severe. It merely means they were diagnosed.
That's it.
Does that make sense?
There might be others who haven't been
never diagnosed, but they're
more
way
severe.
worse, right? But if we were to look at across from mild to severe narcissism, because it is on the spectrum, so mild to severe across the population, the spitballed number that I think most of us in the trenches would probably agree with, enough narcissism that it's causing other people problems, 15%. That's my guess. Somewhere between 15 and 20. I say at certain parts of LA, 20, certain industries, 20.
Right.
But I would say on average, somewhere around 15, and that's all types of narcissism too, which means 85% of people aren't, which is good.
That's good, yeah. And there's 4 different types of narcissism?
I'd say probably closer to 6, but we can go with 4. Yeah.
What are the?
So 4, I would say grandiose, which is the traditional arrogant, pretentious, charming, charismatic, kind of shiny narcissist. That's your kind of prototype of the narcissist. There's the vulnerable narcissist. This is probably, to me, the most compelling form of narcissism because this is where you see the sullenness, the petulance, the passive aggression, the chronic victimhood, the social anxiety, the failure to launch. These are people who live in fantasies of the great things they're going to do, but they never do them.
Wow.
The grandiose people actually often do get them done. They will talk the big game and they'll kind of do the big game.
So the vulnerable doesn't mean they're actually intimate and vulnerable with you.
No.
It means that they
themselves are vulnerable,
but they don't actually take action.
Correct. And they keep
telling everyone, "I'm going to do this project or this thing."
And you know why I couldn't do it? Because that guy didn't give me the money, and that guy was scammed me, and that everyone takes advantage of me, and that person stole my idea.
Yeah,
that's that.
The vulnerable. Okay.
The vulnerable.
Let's just pause that real quick.
Then there's the malignant. Now, to me, the malignant narcissist.
So I don't think she does it in this interview, but in another interview, she says the vulnerable narcissists are actually the most dangerous. And it's because so much of what they do is covert.
Yeah.
There's this article, you can Google it, and it says 24 traits of narcissistic mothers, and it's nailing just vulnerable narcissists narcissism in general. And the reason they say narcissistic mothers is, you know, men tend to be more the grandiose, the in your face, larger than life, just all of that. But, you know, women's physiology is they're not as strong as men. They're physically weaker. Women tend to be much more confrontation adverse, you know, non-confrontational. And so they're more in the realm of indirect. And so it just, women tend to be more in the vulnerable narcissist camp. And it can take longer to detect them, for sure. And a lot of what they do is behind the scenes. And people who say marry a vulnerable narcissist, it's sort of death by a million cuts, and you may not even realize you're dying. You just know you're progressively getting the life sucked out of you and feeling more and more worthless, that there's something wrong with you, that you're a bad person, in a very slow, gradual, but insidious and deep, profound way at a core level. And my mom, this is the type of narcissist my mom is. You could say she has some altruistic narcissist traits too. They talk about self-righteousness later. But I'd say this is the hardest type of narcissism to detect. And again, they won't outright tell you you're worthless, but you may do something you're proud of, and then they're going to compare you to someone who did it even better. Or maybe you'll say that and they'll just, oh, that's nice, and kind of dismiss you in kind of a cursory manner.
Ignore you a bit. And they're doing all these little, and they're intentionally doing it. They're doing all these little psychological tricks to actually make you feel bad about yourself. There's this divorce attorney, man, I forgot his name. He's doing the circuits now. If you guys know, he's been on Psych Hacks, and man, I forgot his name, but he was talking about how people devalue themselves in marriage, and or even after, you know, marriage. And so for one thing he said, gave in his example, is, let's say a child goes with the dad to an event, and then they'll come back and the mom's like, oh, you know, I'm glad you're back. Are you safe? And the message there is your dad can't protect you. That's right.
She's not saying that. She's not saying, oh, he's incompetent and weak, can't protect you. But she's acting like she's concerned for the child when the child was out with the dad, which is communicating, I don't trust the dad. I don't think the dad's capable of taking care of you. But she won't, the vulnerable narcissist won't say that. So there's all these ways, but yet over time, it will have a profound effect on the victim. And I know from experience it's why I had manic depression and CPTSD and anxiety all the time, and internalized rage and all of this. So these are the real sneaky ones, and you got to watch out for them. Yeah.
You know, before I understood all of this stuff, I had a daughter-in-law that married my oldest son. And they were married for about 6 years, no longer married.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh yeah, I remember now.
Yeah, I never knew nothing about narcissism, gaslighting, all of these type of things going on. And after I learned, I literally went back and replayed our whole relationship, and it was gaslighting 101 from day one. Oh my goodness. I mean,
it's like you don't even realize it, and then a light bulb goes off in your head and you're like, oh my goodness, they do this, and this. Did you kind of feel something was wrong there, but you couldn't put your
absolutely. I knew something was awry. And the interesting thing is she affected Carrie a lot more than she affected me. And
Carrie's parents were narcissists, so Carrie was more vulnerable to being triggered.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she could never trigger me. This daughter-in-law could never get to me. In fact, she tried once in a while as I play it back, right? And all of these gaslightings came with a soft voice and a smile and a twinkle in the eye. And
very covert.
Yeah, all this
Very
type of
covert.
stuff. And it blew me away when I started learning. I'm like, oh my goodness, Carrie was on the freaking money. And I wasn't listening because I didn't see it. Right. It wasn't affecting me.
So I'm curious, Tim, was this girl, did she kind of figure out it doesn't work on him? So she kind of left you alone and focused more on others with her?
Absolutely. Yeah. Nearly destroyed my son, focused on Kevin. Sean wouldn't put up with her. He left, got married to someone else. He was gone out of the house.
Yeah.
And, but Carrie would say stuff like, you don't see how she is when you're not here. And I'm going,
yeah,
but I do see her when I am here. And so she quickly figured out I wasn't one that she could get to.
Yeah. And my experience now, including with my mom and other narcissists, they might do just a couple really small digs every now and then they figure out it doesn't work on me at all, because it literally doesn't work on me. Like, they can do things to make me feel worthless, and I'm just like, whatever, like I literally am like, and that's because I've done a lot of self-work. So I know it's them. I know it's not me. And I just, in a way, they only have the power over you that you let them have. But many people can't help but let the narcissist have power, because you have trauma in you that they find and trigger.
Sure.
And you can't help but be triggered. But when you heal all that and you don't have trauma in you, so people are doing things to try and make you feel worthless, you're like, whatever, you just go on with your day.
What's important, Ryan, is you now know your true value and worth to the root level of your soul. And now when people try to do that, just like I've always done my whole life, I sort of like, well, unless you're paying me, your opinion means crap. Right. So, so don't bring it here. It doesn't mean anything. So luckily now you know yourself to the core and you know your true value. Nobody can affect that because you're wired differently now.
Yeah. And I literally see these situations where there's a narcissist and they are messing with people around me, but leaving me alone.
Correct. That's what they do.
Because they won't get narcissistic supply from me.
I was just going to say that, on the money. They can't get it from you. It's worthless anymore.
So, guys, if you have a narcissist in your life, absolutely, if you can, get them out of your life, or limit contact if you can't get them out of your life. But the best way to become bulletproof against a narcissist is they find your insecurities and exploit them. The best defense is find the insecurities in you and then heal them. Then there's nothing to exploit. So if you see at the bottom here, we have a free self-hypnosis program that can actually help you find and heal subconscious trauma. It's not as powerful as one-on-one sessions with us. And there's some people who will struggle to follow it. Most people get benefit from the free course. Some need just one-on-one pro guidance. A lot of these people later come to sessions. They get some stuff on their own. So right there, school.com/RyanFowlerSOS-7231. We have video interviews on my channel, people doing this, curing their depression, curing procrastination, free program. Later on, they come to us for sessions. They find out, oh, there's some stuff harder to get, and so I need a pro's help. But you can fix a lot of stuff on your own. Just go there. It's a school community. People are helping each other, supporting each other. You can DM me there. Jordan's there. Tim's there. We also have our respective websites. I think you are JordanKurtzHypnosis.com. Is that right, Jordan?
Theoretically, if I can get the site up.
Oh, okay. It was up. I guess it's having issues. And then TimCostelloHypnosis.com. So heal that stuff, and then you can actually become, I would say, mostly immune. I wouldn't say completely, but mostly immune to the narcissist.
By the way, let me add to what Ryan's saying. This is a free program. You can do it. You can use it. You can do it over and over and over again, because as you start peeling these things off, others will appear and you will discover them. You'll find out when you're triggered, etc. So it could also get to the point where there are some complex ones where you need our help with. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
You will benefit from this free course, period. You will benefit. There will be some benefit to you. If nothing else, digging deeper, peeling a few off, that kind of stuff.
It is a journey of self-discovery and then healing.
Yeah. So what Ryan's talking about is, as you get rid of these insecurities, they no longer will be able to be triggered. Now, nobody's 100% clean, right? We've all got a little bit of tiny something, but a lot of it just doesn't bother us, or we're so overwhelmed by our goodness that it just doesn't really affect us. The narcissist won't come at us. They won't try to affect us, etc. So super important.
Yeah.
Get that course, sign up. It's free. Download it, do the work, and you will benefit.
Yeah. Now, we're going to go back to the types of narcissism. All types of narcissism are harmful to some degree to people around them. And like Dr. Ramani said, it's on a spectrum. Some people have it a little, and, you know, there's some issues relating or, you know, dealing with these people, but for the most part, they're actually not that bad, and they can have good traits. And then some people have moderate narcissism, some people full-blown, you know, etc. But vulnerable narcissism is, I would say, the type that's most damaging to others. And I would say grandiose narcissism tends to be less damaging to others, although, you know, again, all types of narcissism can be harmful. So, or are harmful in some capacity to others around the narcissist.
And the other thing is, I think that you can also be more than one type. So
Sure.
you can have elements of one, elements of another. You know, I've been analyzing many especially recently, I've been analyzing many individuals in my life, or who used to be in my life, and I've noticed, and as I've been listening to these, because I'm actually the one that came up with this topic, because you know, which is no, for no particular reason. It's not as if I encountered some narcissists in my personal life recently.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Just a coincidence that we're covering this topic today.
Total coincidence.
Yeah, and as she's listing off the traits of the vulnerable narcissist, or the malignant narcissist, or the covert, I'm like, oh yeah, I noticed that there are things in each of them that are similar, but also like, yeah, they kind of do that, they kind of do that, they dress that way, they do this thing, and so I think that these are like, they're categories, but they do bleed into one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she brings up a very good point where people don't want to make diagnoses. Like, that's not the purpose, but it's like, how do people treat you? Like, you almost have to be your own. You have to make your own diagnoses to a certain extent. It's like, how are they treating you? How do they treat others? It's like, they might not have an official diagnosis, but like, if they're not going into therapy, of course they're not going to have an official diagnosis. But does that mean they're not a narcissist if they haven't, some healthcare professional hasn't checked that box? Well, of course not. So
yeah.
She made that point too, Jordan. She made that point that, you know, they come in for a different reason, and they may detect some things, or they're backdoored in, court ordered, etc. You're right. It's on the money.
Yeah. Most narcissists are not formally diagnosed. And I would say the number one detector of narcissism is your gut.
Yep.
You know, let's say there was a hypothetical situation recently where, you know, I encountered a narcissist, and, you know, hypothetically, of course, and, hypothetically, and,
we got it, Ryan. It
took a while, you know, for the conscious mind to fully conclude the person was a narcissist. However, on day one, almost from the very start, the gut was sending red flag signals. Spidey sense was tingling. So conscious mind could take a month or 2 months or 6 months to say, oh man, this guy. And again, I had a narcissistic mom. I'm very familiar with narcissists, and it was a vulnerable narcissist. And those are the types that are the harder to detect. Because they're so indirect and so covert, and, you know, do all the gaslighting, all of that. Gaslighting makes you challenge your own reality. You know, Google it. But people who gaslight are literally making you doubt your own reality or your recollection of events, or that the abuse ever occurred. So sometimes it takes 6 months to like finally conclude, you know what, man, look, I'm looking at this, and this, light bulbs are going off. They were a narcissist. I've had that. I've had people in my life now, again, you know, maybe I'm only talking to them once a week for 10 minutes. But I've had people took over a year to conclude they were a narcissist. And I know narcissism. I grew up with it. You know, again, I wasn't interacting with the person a whole lot, but I had a situation like that. But the gut, man, almost from the start, almost not always, but almost always, and very early on, will send you warning signals, spidey sense. So listen to your spidey sense. If you're interacting with a person and something seems a little off, lean into that. And maybe with full judgment, but maybe once you get those feelings, get your guard up a little and look at them a little more closely for certain signs.
Well, my question, Ryan, for you is like, what do you think your gut's picking up on faster than your conscious mind is? What do you think?
Excellent question. I think you know the answer. Do you want to answer? Or do you want me to give it a stab? Because I think you know, but I'll tell you if you want me to.
Well, I think it could be multiple things. One, it could be like validation seeking behavior that triggers it. I think could be the language they use, like trying to
controlling,
dominate,
manipulative.
Yes, those things, and a lack of empathy. And the thing is, you can fake some of those. And so that's why your conscious mind goes, no, they seem empathetic because they did X, Y, Z, right? They got
and that's the thing is they will fake empathy. They do stuff to throw you off. Consciously, they'll throw you off.
Right.
Subconsciously, your subconscious, like warning, warning. So here's what's going on. Our subconscious mind processes at least, there's different estimates, at least 1,000 times more per second than your conscious mind. And when you meet someone, our subconscious mind notices things, many things that our conscious mind does not notice. When you meet someone, your subconscious notices micro expressions. That are these tiny fraction of a second expressions people have that they cannot hide, that betray what's really going on in them. It communicates their true feelings. So they can act in a way, they can act one way and feel differently on the inside, but people have these little micro expressions that show what they are really feeling and what's really in them.
They're giveaways.
So our conscious mind will usually, there are trained experts that pick up on micro expressions, but most people consciously miss the micro expressions, but your subconscious does not. Our subconscious mind notices other people's breathing patterns, heart rate, dilation in the eyes. There's a phenomenon called reverse speech. Your subconscious mind, it's a supercomputer, notices it all. Body language, tone of voice, the word said, puts it all together and gives you a vibe about the other person. And so sometimes you'll meet someone and you say, man, I don't know what it is. They're cool. I just like them. And by the way, sometimes I'd say in the short term, sometimes narcissists can pull that off, but not in the long term. Sometimes it's, man, I don't know what it is, but this person's shady. You know, and you can't your subconscious picked up on some stuff and is giving you that vibe to communicate that to you.
And you almost said it, Ryan. You actually say out loud, I just can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me add to what Ryan described. Your subconscious catalogs every single thing it notices from the minute you're born. And it is trying to figure it all out. Yeah. And it will put things into categories and descriptions and et cetera, and have emotional responses from those. So I believe that gut feeling is actually an emotional response telling you some pattern was matched, and that match was not a good match, and that might injure you either emotionally or physically. So your gut is telling you something's awry. It's match patterns, like Ryan said, it put it all together. Can't put your finger on it, but you got a gut feeling. Go with your gut always.
And my gut has always detected the narcissist far before my conscious mind said something's wrong.
It knew where the damage and injury was and where the pain was.
Yep. There are times I've spotted a narcissist right away consciously. But again, a lot of them, they put up this false persona. And one of the things they do is they do things to maybe hide the fact that they're a narcissist. But it does depend on the type of narcissist. So the classic malignant narcissist is proud of their narcissism. In fact, you'll ask that type of narcissist if they're a narcissist, and they'll say, yeah, yeah, so what? Like, so that's actually psychiatrists. The number one test to determine, and again, Dr. Orion Taraban on his PsycHacks channel, very good channel, just came up with a video short on the number one test for narcissists. It only works on the classic narcissist, but the number one test psychiatrists use for that type of narcissist is to ask them if they're a narcissist. And if they are, again, vulnerable narcissists will not say this. They'll
Correct.
say no. But a classic narcissist would be like, yeah, I'm narcissistic, man, and it's great. And it's an actual test psychiatrists use for that type of narcissism. All right. Anyways, back to the show. Unless you guys have some.
I had
final
one more
comments back to
comment, and the flip side of this is if, because I've had family members say to me, well, I don't think so and so is like that. I don't notice anything like that. It's like, well, sometimes because I'm talking about the flip side of the gut decision. So it's like, well, I don't notice this person has this issue because their interactions with me have always been a certain way, or and so how do you square those two? And I think that well, there's a couple reasons for that. A narcissistic system is like everyone kind of supports the narcissist. They all they know that there's something wrong with that person, but they all feel, or they're either trauma bonded, or they all have some vested interest in keeping the status quo going. Because the moment someone breaks from that status quo and identifies that narcissist has issues, that shines a light on the fact that they're all trying to cover up for those issues. And so I think that, do they really not see it, or are they choosing not to see it? I think more or less they're choosing not to see it.
Sometimes
a lot of people don't trust their gut. A lot of people are
know.
disconnected from their gut, and they get fooled.
But you're right. They may be supporting the narcissist. It's comfortable and familiar to them.
Yeah. And it's like the amount of energy, because like to really accept what the truth is requires them to evaluate a lot of other things in their life, maybe even about themselves. Did they have issues they need to deal with? What about their spouse that has issues they have to deal with? What about or their brother, their sister, once that first domino falls, there might be no stopping it. So maybe it's better if they just deny it to begin with. And so that can be difficult if you're a victim of abuse from a narcissist, when not just the narcissist, but everyone around them in your family kind of shuns you too.
Yeah.
Not that I have any personal experience with that or anything, but
of course not.
Hypothetically, but it does happen.
Okay.
All
right. Yep. Back to Dr. Ramani. So 2 types so far: grandiose and vulnerable. Let's go to the other type.
Yeah.
She's going to describe
the most severe form of narcissism. And that's when we talk about stuff like the dark tetrad. And the dark tetrad is composed of narcissism, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, the willingness to take advantage of other people, and sadism. And I also believe paranoia sits in there too, right? So in malignant narcissism, we're talking about people who are more coercive, who are more menacing, who are more isolating. This feels a little bit more like psychopathy, but it's still narcissism, and that's much more severe. Okay. Then we have the communal narcissists.
Communal.
And these are the folks who so all narcissistic folks need validation. The communal narcissistic folks are interesting because they get their validation by being perceived as saviors, rescuers, and do-gooders.
Like cult leaders or more?
That's a severe. So a cult leader would be a communal malignant narcissist. That would be.
Okay.
So
wow,
these
combined.
are like cocktails, right?
Jeez.
These are like you put it all together.
Wow.
So at the extreme, a communal malignant narcissist, cult leader. But some communal narcissists could be a mother who does all the activities and the PTA and helps the little league and raises the money and goes to the galas and goes home and screams at her kids and is horrible and abuses her partner.
But on the surface, it looks like
they think she's a saint amongst us. It's the person who walks around and everyone thinks they're a humanitarian, and people are like, no, I worked for their nonprofit, and like it was absolutely a hellscape, right?
Yeah, when you look behind the curtain, you see
bingo. So that's the communal narcissist. So they get validation by the sense of look what a good person they are. They're rescuing puppies and they're doing this thing and they're raising all this money and they're so good.
But behind the scenes, they're not.
Not. So it's not saying if people do nice things are communal narcissists.
Sure,
It's
sure.
that it's that they continue to have the lack of empathy, entitlement, all that other stuff.
So it's like you can, because I'm like, okay, well, I want to build a community and serve people. So how do you build a community? You've got a big audience.
Yeah.
Like, how do we build communities without that becoming a thing? Is it just because if you're not consistent with service all around you in your relationships, then
Right.
you're more
So, I mean, are you being mean to other people? So, like,
Gotcha.
if I was
public facing, you look like
Right.
the best thing ever, but behind the scenes,
exactly, so
you're
you're mean to
nasty.
your partner,
I
you're
see.
mean to your family, you're mean to
got
your
it.
people who work.
You're inconsistent.
You're consistent. You're consistently mean to the people who are behind
Right,
the
right.
curtain. You're consistently sort
Sure.
of putting on a show in front of the curtain.
Yeah, but you're
So-
not consistent on both ways.
No, and
of like
that's what
service
it is.
mindset.
Yeah,
Okay,
No,
communal.
communal.
You
And
just
then
pause
there's the
just real
self-righteous
quick,
narcissist.
Just a quick comment.
The self-righteous narcissist.
There we go.
So this ties into the fact that virtue signaling is a type of narcissistic behavior.
Yep.
And again, the classic malignant narcissist is not going to be doing this. It's the communal narcissist. I have also heard it be called the altruistic narcissist. They pretend to be this really good person. They are doing that so that the outside world will validate them and say what a good person this is. And then they go home and they are horrible to their family. They're not being good to be good. They're being good so other people will think they're good and validate them. And that is exactly what virtue signaling is. And virtue signaling is so freaking common in our society. And it's really bad. And I think everyone knows. And this is why everyone shifted red over the last election. It's like every county had more Republican votes in the last presidential election than the one before. Like every single county in the country shifted red because this whole woke progressive, we're so righteous, but at the same time, they're really pretty much assholes. They're, they pretend they're righteous, but then they do all this like toxic stuff. And, I mean, that's altruistic. Altruistic narcissists will try and hide it though, except to those closest to them, and then they're monsters,
Well, especially when you have an authority figure above them saying you're a good person for believing in this thing, and that's the thing.
Validation.
You can take advantage of that. So that's why it's like what we're doing is dangerous to the Marxists and the statists of the world, because if you can't dangle that threat of if you can't dangle that validation over people's heads when people can give it to themselves, it's a lot more difficult to mobilize people around a common idea. It's like you're a good person if you wear a mask or take the jab or believe in this cause or that cause. And it's like, well, I don't.
Now that's a means to control you. Don't you want to be a good person? And if they shame you for not doing, if someone shames you for not doing what they want, that is toxic behavior.
Watch out, baby. Watch out.
You don't do what they want and they shame you and make you feel like a bad person. Guess what? That's a bad person doing that.
And it's also to add to that,
or it's a toxic person rather.
Shame can come in there when you may not do what they want, but you don't buy into their idea, support them, and spread the word.
Yeah.
Because you've had people, how could you not like my Facebook post? Or how come you put a thumbs down? Or, whatever the case may be, there is, that kind of stuff going on. Now, we're not saying it's a Republican versus Democrat thing. We're just saying that by and large, there was a mass group of people that supported this type of thing. And those were more on the blue side than the red side. Now, notwithstanding Lindsey Graham,
there's problems on both sides of the political spectrum. By the way,
always there are
big
narcissists.
problems.
There are narcissists across the playing field.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't know because you don't know who they are, and all you know is their public persona. So, be careful painting one red or blue. But like Ryan said, the giant persona in America was that the woke was on the blue side of the line. And that's why a larger percentage of people now swung to the red. It doesn't mean they're a Republican. It just means that they didn't like that tired of ideology on the other side.
They got tired of toxic behavior.
Right. Their gut is telling them something's wrong here, even if they can't put their finger on it. And that's why they swung in that red direction.
Yeah, I actually, do think there is a kernel of truth in woke culture, which is all people should be treated with decency and respect, even if different from us. If they're a different color, a different sex, a different sexual orientation, there's a basic level of human decency and courtesy that we should treat others with.
100%.
But man, then there's just so much toxicity, and then they just behaved so disrespectful to people that didn't, necessarily accept every facet of their agenda. And then there were people within their own woke culture where they differed somewhat in opinion. Then they start attacking each other and demonizing us. It's like your guys are 90% believe the same, but that 10% difference, you got to attack each other over and just treat each other horribly. So thank goodness woke culture, I believe, is firmly on its way out. Maybe there will be an element of their lingering around for a while, but man, there's so much narcissism in woke culture, honestly.
Yeah, and like you said, I want to go back to the video for a second. It was that you can have. She even started talking about how you can have the malignant plus, or what was the example she gave? The malignant plus this kind of narcissism.
Malignant communal. That's the cult leader.
Exactly, and so
we don't know anyone like that.
No, of course not, Ryan. What are you talking about?
Hypothetically speaking, their name would be
Andrew
Tate.
Well, Andrew Tate, yeah, I think he's narcissistic sociopath. I'll say that about Tate.
Yeah, I think sociopath. I think better describes Tate.
He acts so innocent. It's like, don't you remember you admitted to tax evasion and fraud, and you talked about you dealt drugs at one point? That's all on YouTube, buddy. And then people act like he never did it. It's like, come on, man. He admitted it publicly. He talked about
irony,
frauding people, sex trafficking.
The irony is that, the
publicly.
narcissists that Ryan and I are aware of or have we interacted with, they'll never, we could almost say it straight to their faces. That's the thing. And they would never admit it. That's the thing. Dr. Ramani even said
if they're classic malignant, they if you ask them if they're narcissists, they actually admit to that. Yeah. But
they would.
Other type of narcissists won't. Other type of narcissists. In fact, our next show, we're actually going to look at, a clip of this psychologist, PsyD psychologist doctorate, who talks about how abusers don't even notice that they're abusing others.
Yep.
And won't own up to it. So you are on the right track with that. I'm just kind of pointing out that some narcissists are proud of their narcissism.
That's true.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you point out the traits that, for example, if you show them if you make a video or something pointing out the traits of them and show that video to them, that sounds really good, having no idea that you're talking about them to their face.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%.
That's kind of what I mean. It's like they could watch this entire interview with Dr. Ramani and go, yeah, that sounds like a problem. I better avoid those types of people, having almost no idea that they are exactly like that.
The new next has a question. I'd say it's possible.
Yeah. Just remember that the human brain and the operating system making us be who we are is tremendously complex, multifaceted, and has experienced billions and trillions of interactions from the time you're born to now, that is trying to make sense of all there. And generally remember that the subconscious's main objective is to keep you safe from being injured. So it will do a number of things, even in a maligned way, to make that happen.
Yes. Yes, sir. Absolutely correct. So
next ask, you sort of answered it. Won't woke narcissists just morph into conservatives in a conversation? I think that's what you meant at the end of the word there.
If they think that's a better source of narcissistic supply and society shifts,
if social acceptance is important to them, and they're in a group of 4 or 5 or 6 people, and those 4 or 5, 6 people don't agree with that person subconsciously will retreat a little bit. and they'll even smile and maybe even go along with it just to not get damaged themselves. But for the 4 of those 5 people step away and that one person sits there that was the root of that, they might start arguing again. They might pick it right back up and try to validate and get in there. So you never know, but it could be.
Depends on how powerful that identity is, though. If you've got like ironclad, like this is my tribe, they give me the validation, and they don't, maybe the other people in this group, they don't respect as much, they don't like. I think that it depends on who supplies, again, because they can't give validation to themselves. So it's like, who gives them, what group gives them the most amount of validation? And it can change from moment to moment. Whatever's the strongest source of validation, that's predictably what they're going to move towards, I think.
Yeah. And just keep in mind, guys, that like Tim said, our brains are incredibly complex. Our behavioral patterns are incredibly complex. So you can have someone who's a codependent narcissist. You can have someone who's, all sociopaths and psychopaths have a strong narcissistic streak. You can have someone who's BPD a narcissist. You can have someone, it's like, man, they got 1 or 2 annoying narcissistic traits, but other than that, they're really great people. Yeah. And they just have a little bit of narcissism, and then you have full blown, and so it's just kind of all over the place. So we're talking about tendencies, generalities here. I think there might be one other type of narcissism she hasn't talked about yet.
I think there is.
And after that, we will give our take on, is Trump a narcissist?
All right.
The clickbait of the day.
All right, we'll keep going.
This is judgmental, moralistic, rigid. They're often funky with money. This would be a kind of person who has so much money, and someone in their family has a hardship. They had a job loss, and then their kid needs medical care, and they'll say, well, I didn't create this situation, so I guess you'll have to figure it out.
They have no heart.
Like it feels like no heart, but there's also this really rigid, judgmental, and they judge people from the sense of, well, look at all I built. I guess I must have worked hard. They'll never account for their luck, right? Or sometimes their absence of bad luck, that kind of thing. They will say, if they say dinner's at 6 and you show up at 6:30 because your kid got sick, they'll say, I'm sorry, we already ate. So it feels very rigid, cold, moralistic, miserly, obsessive. These are people who are often workaholics and with little care for how it would affect anyone. It's like, there's workaholics out there who check in on other people, like, I'm going to make time for you.
Sure.
Or we're taking a vacation when this is done, whatever. And they're communicating, and people are aware, okay, they're doing this so we could buy the house or whatever.
So is it possible to be self-righteous and not be a narcissist then?
I don't think you can ever be self-righteous and healthy, because I think if you're self-righteous, you're like, I'm better than you.
Gotcha.
Right. So you'll even see self-righteous narcissism in some of these kinds of exercise zealots who are like, I wake up at 4 a.m. and then I milk my goat and I make a smoothie and then I do 1,000 crunches and run 10 million miles and then I work and then I journal and then I this and I sleep at 8 o'clock. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, is there no other human being in your life? Like, how do you deal with a crying sister? I tell her to go to hell and I drink more goat milk. It's that can be and the reason I'm in shape and I'm going to live to be 179 years old is because I do all this and you don't, you lazy, awful person. That's self-righteous.
Lacking compassion, lacking understanding,
it's lack of awareness of others. So that self-righteousness is sort of where the lack of empathy sits, right? So I don't think you can be I don't think there's good self-righteousness. I don't think all self-righteous people are narcissistic, but many people have said to me that self-righteous narcissism is really what happened in their family of origin. It was a parent. So there would almost be this unrealistic expectation that the child would adhere to rigid, obsessive rules like, don't touch this, don't do this, don't sit there, eat like this. And so the kid never got to be a kid.
Okay. Number 6.
And number
I just had a real quick thought about this, and it is that it's not, if you're trying to determine if someone else in your life is a narcissist, it's not one thing that they do. It's not because they're workaholic doesn't make them.
Several aspects of behavior.
Right. It's an aggregate of a lot of different behaviors at once. And you go, okay, generally the behavior tends toward these things. And so individually, it's like, if you really can't help out somebody with a medical bill or something, that doesn't make you a narcissist. And I've had conversations with people trying to convince them, like, no, this person really is narcissistic. Look at all these things. And they had excuses for each example I brought.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it's not the way you measure something. You have to measure it based on the aggregate of all of these things combined. And you go, look, their behavior tends to tilt towards this thing. And so, yes, if a healthy person who wasn't narcissistic did the individual things, yes, that doesn't make them a narcissist. But you have to understand how to study that correctly, which is the aggregate of a lot of different things sometimes.
Yeah, let's identify. I want to just point out some of the common threads all narcissists have. And we're seeing this picture now, lack of empathy and compassion for others. Now, they may publicly pretend to have compassion and empathy, but that takes us to our next thing, is that every narcissist will project a false image that's ideal in some way to the outside world. It could be, look at me, I'm just this awesome billionaire. It could be, and maybe they are a billionaire, or maybe they're faking it, but kind of larger than life. It could be very righteous. Like, there's a lot of narcissism among like really devoutly religious people. Now, again, not all some devoutly religious people are really good people. But and they're talking about that self-righteousness. They will project this image of, look what a great mom I am. I'm at every PTA meeting, or, great dad. I'm at every PTA meeting. My yard looks immaculate. The house is always clean, and I'm such an upstanding member of the community, and everyone loves him or her, outwardly. So they'll project either righteousness, or they'll be a sterling member of the community, or they'll be this larger than life. That's a more grandiose, and the more classic narcissist, doing big things and, super confident and super charming and charismatic. But every narcissist has some sort of false front they put out that looks really great on the outside. But then you will see what's called cracks in the mask. And the closer you are to them, the more you see this. And if you're like a family member or significant other, the mask oftentimes just straight comes off, where their behavior privately is like different. So they're two-faced, cracks in the mask. You'll see them do something that is just totally incongruent with the false persona they're usually projecting to the world. And oftentimes it is, they seem really nice and great, and then you'll see them do something was just very hard, cold, cruel, uncaring, unfeeling. And also, I would say a common thread for all narcissists is, if you agree with their point of view or their opinion, great. But if you disagree, they have different methods for, basically it's like, if you disagree with me, then you're wrong, I'm right. I'm always right. You're always wrong. And
how dare you even disagree with me?
How dare you? Yeah. So there's that arrogance there. There's that lack of tolerance for, and this is why I say woke culture is self-righteous. And if you don't agree with them, how dare you? That's narcissism right there. So again, but I think there's a kernel of truth. Yeah. If someone's gay, they should still be treated like a human being, etc. They should still be treated with courtesy, politeness, respect, empathy, compassion, all of that. There's that kernel of truth, but then they don't. What's that?
Unless that gay person voted for Trump, in which case they don't count.
Yeah, exactly. And there's literally gay people that voted for Trump and were public on it, and then the woke community just demonized them. They eat their own. But
exactly.
Yeah. So if you have someone who is dismissive of your opinion, or shames you for your opinion, like you have an honest to goodness opinion, instead of saying, hey, I respect your difference, they shame you for it, or they whatever they do, but you can tell that they think their opinion is the only right one and everyone else's opinion is wrong. That's, all narcissists. Again, some are more covert in rejecting others' opinions. Some are more overt. Some may just be a little dismissive towards you, or give you a little dig, or just kind of, ignore it whenever you express an opinion they don't agree with. And then later on do something to prove that they're right or to get back at you or get even. Like they do some low-key revenge. It's just weird, the stuff they do. But I would say all narcissists have those things. They're always right. You're always wrong in some way. A false front, two-faced behavior, and lack of empathy or compassion. And, they all have those traits.
Yep.
For sure.
For sure.
Yep, for sure.
Yep. The new next had ex-wife used to say, "How dare you," all the time when I express boundaries.
Yeah, that is narcissistic behavior. It's toxic narcissistic behavior, because the truth is everyone's boundaries matter. If someone's doing something that makes you uncomfortable, that makes you not feel good, that you don't like, you have right to say, listen, I really don't like it when you do that. It makes me not feel good. Please don't do that. And then if they keep doing it, you have a right to take action, and either you get out of there and say, I don't like what you're doing. I'm out of here. You could tell them to get lost, or you get lost, or you can have other ways to enforce your boundaries. And if they have a problem with that, then they are toxic. End of story.
Yeah. And the other one I've gotten is, well, why didn't you bring this up sooner? Like shaming me for, well, aren't you a hypocrite because you didn't bring
because I didn't call out your abuse sooner? It's ridiculous.
Because I didn't want to tolerate that conversation sooner. Like, again, blame shift. We can do a whole show on blame shifting,
all that stuff.
Shift it. If you accuse them of anything, no matter how nicely you say it, if they detect any blame, immediately they can shift from, it's like, well, you did this, without taking any modicum of responsibility for what they did.
Whereas a person with empathy, they may say, oh, I'm sorry. Maybe they even say, I wish you would have brought that up sooner. But then they say, I'm sorry. I didn't know that was offending you. I wish you would have brought that up sooner. That's not narcissism.
Right. But
that's just them saying, I wish you would have told me so I would have stopped sooner.
That's regret. I'm sorry.
Yes. And the tricky thing with that is that it's not, that's one thing, but saying it's your fault because you didn't bring it up sooner. But see, this is the narcissist can learn how to fake empathy by using the same words that people with real empathy have. So there's a big difference between, I can't believe you didn't bring this up sooner. What is wrong with you? And, well, I wish you would have brought this up sooner so that we didn't have to do this. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Two very different things. One of them is blame. One of them is empathy. And I want to take responsibility. Very different. Now, but they can look similar. So don't be fooled.
Yep.
Yeah. And another non-narcissistic response is, I don't agree with you here, but you know what? I respect your right to have your own opinion.
Yeah.
If you disagree with someone, it doesn't make you a narcissist, but you still have a certain level of respect and allow that other person to think different than you.
Yeah.
Whereas a narcissist is going to give you signals that there's something wrong with the opinion you have. You are somehow bad or wrong or less than for having this opinion. Now, we're not talking about statements of fact. If you state a fact and then someone says that fact is wrong, they're not discounting your opinion. They're just pointing out that you stated a fact that you can prove is wrong because it's a fact. It's not an opinion. So if you have bad data and they say the data is bad, again, not narcissistic. But if you have an opinion like, I like green houses and blue cars, and they say, well, I like yellow cars, but that's cool. You like blue ones. Not narcissistic. Narcissistic is, well, I like yellow cars and you're stupid for liking blue ones. That's narcissistic. You see the difference?
Yep.
That is because there's no facts there. It's just you expressing your preference. I would appreciate it if you don't say that to me. And then if they shame you for saying that, your preference, your opinion, and they say there's something wrong with your opinion, again, not facts, your preference, what you want, your opinion. I don't like it when you do that. Can you please not do that around me? Now they treat like there's something wrong with you. That is toxic behavior, and that is narcissistic. If they're saying my opinion's right, my preferences are right, yours are wrong. If they can communicate it directly, indirectly, in any number of ways, but at the core, if they're doing that, that is toxic narcissistic behavior. That's them thinking they are better than you for mere opinion and preference.
Yep. Let's get to the question of the day.
Correct the new next. Oh, there's one more real quick, and then we'll maybe just, I know we're at the hour mark. Get number 6
rolling,
and then we'll do our Trump weigh-in.
All right.
6 would be more of a neglectful narcissist. So these are the people who they view everyone as object. So coffee cup, whatever. And they just neglect them until they need them.
They just discard them. Or they just don't give them attention or energy, or
They don't have to give them attention. They don't attune to them. When a person around them is struggling, they won't care. It's
a lack of empathy.
It's a lack of empathy, but it's a lack of, like, for example, a malignant or a grandiose narcissist might actually get mad at someone. Like, oh my gosh, like, why do you keep talking to me? And people in relationships with neglectful narcissists will say, I'll take it, because at least that person was listening. But people in these relationships will literally feel like they're losing their minds because the person with them is literally not noticing it unless they need something from them.
Wow. So they're giving the cold shoulder. They don't speak to them for days, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. They just don't notice. They don't care. They won't know. Like, you might say, like, I have the biggest presentation of the year next week. They won't even ask.
Wow. It's all about them.
It's all about them, but in this weird way, and they don't even take notice of other people. So it is people who I've known clients in this experience, and they'll say, it's as though I didn't exist. But then when I had the piece of information or something they needed, I existed. So you feel like a really neglected personal assistant.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so that's number
Now,
6. She just
have you seen any
described
research on-
she just described one of the main plot elements of all the Toy Story movies, by the way. Unless the kid wants to play the toy, the kid neglects the toy. Anyways.
Yep.
All right. So question of the hour, is Trump a narcissist? If so, what type? And where is he on the spectrum? If so, or is he not at all a narcissist? What do you guys think? Who wants to chime in first?
Jordan, go.
There are certain elements. I mean, he's a TV star, so we have to kind of filter that through that lens to a certain extent. And so, like, is he a TV star because he has narcissistic traits that are particularly beneficial for TV, or is it, is it a chicken or the egg thing? I think the big point against him being a narcissist is that he does enjoy bringing people into his cabinet. He enjoys bringing people who are superstars in their respective industries.
He shares the spotlight like he's doing with Elon.
Yep.
And you could also say, maybe you could also argue, well, isn't he just bringing these other people in so he looks better at the end of the day? So it's really still about his ego versus these other people. Maybe, but so that might have to do with the kind of narcissist he likes. Like, is he a little bit the grandiose because he wants these things? The other thing is, it does seem like his kids seem to be relatively, I mean, I don't know them personally, but I mean, his kids have kids as well. And so he has grandchildren. It's like, how narcissistic can you be if you've got seemingly a lot of healthy kids that don't seem like, they don't seem to have anything wrong with them. They don't seem to have, like Joe Biden's kids were bringing cocaine into the White House.
There's no black sheep in Trump's family.
Doesn't seem like it. So
narcissists typically have family members, like children. One's a golden child, then there's a scapegoat. You don't see any of that. Like, all of his children. Now, I'm not saying his children are perfect, but he seems to be pretty much proud of all of his children.
Yeah.
And they seem to be doing, all good. You don't have like one child who's a drug addict and who's a black sheep.
Right.
He's
Now,
right.
So what I go to when I look at someone like Donald Trump, because quite frankly, I didn't like him on The Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin loved to watch that all the time. I used to watch a couple of them and I go, this guy's really pretty bombastic, right? I mean, now there's some TV starism kind of thing there. Controversy sells eyeballs, all that different kind of stuff. But I go to his family background.
Okay.
His brother died of alcoholism. He drank himself to death at a very young age. So here's Donald and his brother coming from the same set of parents in a very close time period in the exact same neighborhood, so on and so forth, right? One guy drank himself to death. So alcoholism is one way of dealing with some type of psychological trauma, subconscious trauma.
True.
I don't know where he got that trauma from, but it may be from his parents. So what did Donald get? Well, Donald got the same treatment, I would imagine. The parents were still new. His dad was a driven developer in the New York suburbs. He didn't really go into the city much. Levittown, I think he built a bunch of homes in, sold a bunch of stuff. But he was driven, obviously. The mother was Scottish girl. He was a German guy kind of thing. I don't know what that has to do with it. But Donald doesn't drink, doesn't smoke because he observed his brother's behavior and doesn't want to go in that direction. And by the way, Donald was at an age where noticing that in his brother dying, Donald wasn't 12. Donald was in his 30s when his brother died.
Yeah.
So you've got some subconscious trauma going in that family and everybody reacting differently to it. So what does he do? I think Donald Trump loves validation externally, and I think he's driven a little bit on some toxic fuel that, quite frankly, has benefited him pretty well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's developed a great empire. He became president of the United States twice, has withstood more abuse than I think any person should be subject to as an adult. You know, the lawfare, the all the cases and all that kind of crap.
Democrats put him through hell, man. Like,
right.
nonstop.
So when I look at him as a person, he certainly has probably one or two narcissistic tendencies, but they're not tremendously toxic to other people anyway. So
unless you get on his bad side. But
well, I mean, now
like he never threw Hillary in jail.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there is a streak where he knows when he's in the game, right? Hillary was in the game and he was in the game. So they're going to say things that you say when you're in the game to gain popularity or gain votes or whatever, right? That's the goal. Rebecca puts a couple other things. No empathy for people of other countries. I've not seen a president more driven to stop people from dying.
Yeah.
Right. He's really hell-bent on solving this Ukraine. Now, sure, it's going to make him look good. He's going to go down in history as whatever. Great. I'm not concerned with that. I am concerned with the Ukrainian and Russian people dying at the rate they're dying, because that is their repopulation stock. That is the reproductive stockpile that's going to make that country grow. And then he says he has no respect for the law. He actually does respect the law because when the judge says something, he stops. Does he pony up and get a bunch of attorneys that think a lot better than he does and all that kind of stuff? Absolutely. I mean, he definitely has some deep pockets where he can hire some people and help him out. But it is interesting. He's a mixed bag like everybody else. He doesn't have any full-blown narcissistic personality disorder like a lot of people think. He's arrogant. He's a bit of an egomaniac. But he doesn't give typical narcissistic vibes because he calls everybody nice things. She's really a great lady. He's really a great man. He's done a lot in his career. He's built a huge company. Narcissists don't do that. Narcissists,
it's all about them.
Correct. Narcissists will constantly say
the glory, but he
now he does have a little bit of that. You know, I don't know why he beats up Biden so bad. We get that Joe Biden will go down as the second or third worst president in history. Not the worst, but the second or third. It's James Buchanan is number one. Jimmy Carter and Joe Biden are tying for 2 and 3, and then the rest they just sort out. But the reality is, I don't think he's a full-blown narcissist, but he's certainly got some issues he's dealing with that don't bother him too much or other people around him. And like Ryan said, he's got a pretty good family. I mean, they're pretty productive. They're pretty upbeat. Now, is it an act? It could be, but you can't act that long.
The fact that he has as many kids as he has,
right?
And there's no like blatant black sheep. Like a narcissist would traumatize the children, and I would say very strong likelihood there's going to be at least one black sheep reacting to the trauma in that black sheep sort of way, like Hunter Biden with his dad.
Yep.
And I'm not saying Biden Senior, Joe Biden's a narcissist. I don't think he is, but there's some sort of toxic crap going on there that led Hunter to just go off the rails like he did.
Yeah.
Anyways, anything else, Tim?
And your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, so my thoughts are kind of in line with you, Tim. I think Trump has grandiose narcissistic traits, some of them. He's not a full-blown narcissist because he does some things a narcissist would not do.
Correct.
I think he has selective compassion and empathy. And what I mean by that is there are people who come forward and said, hey, I was struggling and Trump did this thing for me and he never told anyone. And there's been multiple people who later came out and say that. I've seen it on the news. And so he doesn't always brag. I do believe, based on, we've known him for years, that he does have a genuine soft spot for the working man. He does share glory with others. He is arrogant and grandiose. He is. Yep. And I do think some of the stuff he says that get him in trouble is more lack of impulse control, shooting from the hip. I think some of his ideas are amazing. I think some of his ideas are nuts. Like he'll say grandiose stuff and it's like, okay, wait a second, Donald, can we actually do that? Can that realistically be done? Like he's literally talking about cleaning out, taking all people in Gaza, cleaning out and building a Las Vegas there, which is ridiculous and highly unrealistic.
But it gets the conversation started.
Anyways, so some of what he does is great. Sometimes he shoots from the hip too much. Sometimes he should not say what's on his mind. I do think that a lot of people he surrounds himself with are he's going to surround himself with people who agree with his positions. But that's in some ways that's kind of human nature anyways.
That is very human.
Yeah. So that's not necessarily narcissism. But he does certainly have, if you get on his bad side, then I will say any empathy for you goes out the window and he's just going to fight you. I view that as more kind of a strong streak of tribalism, not necessarily narcissism, because I do think there are people he has genuine empathy for, but man, you get on his bad side and he'll attack you, and you can argue whether that is a good or a bad trait, but it's not necessarily narcissistic. If he didn't have compassion or empathy for anyone, one thing I think was very telling was when he had that fight in the Oval Office with Zelensky, and they didn't get to the point of absolutely shouting at each other, but their voices were raised and they were arguing. And but one thing he said, listen, Zelensky, your hatred for Putin is clear, but I can't be angry at Putin because we're not going to be able to make a deal with him then. And so you see Trump actually considering other people's opinions and point of view and where they're coming from and saying, listen, for the greater good, I know you don't like Putin. I know he's been an aggressor here, but we have to consider where he is coming from and where you are coming from. If we don't do that, there won't be an agreement. Well, a narcissist, I think, is fundamentally incapable of acting in that way. Correct. Of saying, we're going to consider where he's coming from. We're going to consider where you're coming from. Try and meet in the middle. I don't think a narcissist can do that.
Which is probably more Putin than Trump. As being a narcissist. I said Putin is probably more of that than Trump.
Putin could be, my guess is Putin's a sociopath or psychopath.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, he just don't give a shit. He's what, 500,000 of his own people dead. He doesn't care. You know,
Yep.
he has like stole $40 billion from his own country, which is, you know, in many ways, the standard of living in Russia is not very high. So, yeah. Anyways, I think Trump has done business deals that are rotten business deals that hurt other people. So, I think there are some narcissistic traits there. I don't think he's anywhere near a full-blown narcissist. I think there's traits where he does have compassion, where he's trying
Talking
to
about Trump now again, not Putin.
Yeah, Trump, not Putin. I think Trump has some personality flaws that sometimes gets him in trouble and sometimes gets him to, you know, instead of keeping his mouth shut, say something that pisses someone off. Talking about doing things that are unrealistic. But his type of narcissistic traits are really the least harmful. That's the grandiose narcissist is the least harmful type of narcissist. Not saying, and he's not even full blown that. He just has traits in that spectrum, and he has certain toxic traits. But again, he's a complex person. Would I vote for Trump over Kamala Harris? You are damn right I would. Any day of the week, vote for Trump over Kamala Harris, because I don't trust that snake Kamala or Hillary Clinton or Biden, like, at all. At least Trump says what's on his mind. So,
Yeah, we can check them out on another show.
Yeah. All right. So that's all I had. We are going to look at what's up.
Like I wanted to reiterate. I think he has a lot of very honest people around him who seem to have high integrity, and Tulsi Cash and with Vivek when he was there, and Elon. Like,
yeah.
I don't think somebody who is fundamentally narcissistic can attract so many of these positive people long term into their orbit. I think that these other, and I think people like Vivek, people like Elon would have seen through some of the. If Trump was particularly nasty in particular ways, I don't think they would work with him. I certainly wouldn't endorse him. That to me says something, that he's attracted all these really great people to him. So
yeah, now there's actually a really interesting fact and figure of particular fact that's really interesting. So white executives in the White House. So Kamala was a VP, Trump was a president, you know, is president now and was president in 2016 to 2020. Their staff is known for having high turnover, like the average rate's like 70%, or
it was higher. Kamala's
but
like
for Trump, his turnover rate I think was 77, which was a little high. But honestly, for that type of work, you're at 70% anyways. That's the norm.
Yep.
Kamala Harris's staff turnover rate was 94%, extremely high. And she was known for being extremely difficult to work with, extremely toxic behind the scenes. So that's a bigger tell than anything. And by the way, none of us are here is saying Trump is perfect or innocent. I think he has some narcissistic traits, but he's not a full-blown narcissist, and he has his good points too. And like it or not, narcissism is on a spectrum. There are some people that are amazing human beings who are have mild narcissistic traits, but they are otherwise amazing human beings. A lot of executives are like that. And guess what? If they didn't have those traits, they wouldn't be that executive changing the world. So Alex Hormozi, good point, man. Alex Hormozi is so freaking dominant.
Yep.
But he's changing the world. And he's causing a net positive. He has free courses that give amazing business advice that others would literally charge you $25,000 to teach you, and he's doing it for free. But he's kind of a bulldozer. Like, you know, he's gonna get his way. Super dominant, and maybe even a bit of a low-key bully sometimes if he really needs something. He's not trying to be a dick to you. He's just gonna get his way. Well, you know, leaders in our society tend to have the CEO of NVIDIA is known to be hard to work for, but Elon Musk is known to be hard to work for. He pushes people very, very hard. But those are the type of people who are changing the world. Is that bad behavior?
Yep.
Sometimes, yes.
Yep.
It can be bad and good at the same time. We live in a complex world. That's just how it is.
Well, look at Steve Jobs. Look what Steve Jobs did.
Steve Jobs,
And he was the biggest a-hole walking.
huge a-hole, massive a-hole.
Yep.
So it's on a spectrum. And there are some types of narcissists that their narcissism has no redeeming qualities whatsoever, and they are a net negative on our society, and they should be avoided at all costs. I would say most narcissists who, you know, full-blown or strong narcissistic streaks fit in that camp. But then there's a lot of other people where it's a mix.
And like I said at the beginning, everybody's got a little bit of everything.
Trump's a mix. So if you want to point out Trump's bad points,
It's easy to do.
Yeah, some people blow his bad points way out of proportion because the media makes all sorts of lies. But then there's some bad points people point out, and it's like, you know, yeah,
Yep.
he's he did that, and that was pretty messed up that he did that, and you
Yep.
know, so we are the Fox News of opinions on Trump, trying to be fair and balanced. And it is what it is, but man, I'm so glad
They're not
Kamala-
so fair and balanced, but
they're not fair and balanced. I'm just their tagline is fair and balanced.
I know,
But you're
it's sort of a joke.
Fox News is skewed to the right. They're as far right as CNN is far left, although I don't
Yep.
think they lie quite as much, but they do lie, in my opinion.
Yep.
It is what it is. So that's our take. Crafting and Crime Daily, agree to disagree. I have no problem whatsoever with that statement. God bless you. And everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I respect that absolutely. But life is complex. People are complex. Yeah.
for
So
sure.
any final thoughts, guys?
No, sir. I think we've said enough.
All right. So next week we're gonna have an interesting show because we're gonna look at a clip of this doctorate in psychology who points out abusive people don't even see their own abusive behavior a lot of the time, and what is going on with the subconscious that keeps them from seeing that. Why do abusers portray themselves as victims oftentimes? So it's gonna be really interesting next week. It's gonna help our audience understand why certain abusive people do what they do. And we'll give you tips on handling those type of people too. So that'll be next week. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Great show, Tim and Jordan. Thank you for your useful, fantastic insights. And at the end of the day, if you don't want to be vulnerable to narcissists, you get your internal core strong. They feed off of insecurity within you. They probe for it, they find it, then they exploit it. The best defense is get that subconscious trauma, those insecurities in you, find them, locate them, get them out of you. It's what we do all day, every day. There's a free program for crying out loud going to help you with it. And if you do that, it changes everything. And then you're going to know what Tim has discovered, I've discovered, Jordan has discovered, which is you truly do have more power than you know. That's our show. Thank you. And I cannot find what's it called? Oh, here we go.
I can't find stage left.
Yeah, I can't find the
Like Biden getting off a stage.
All right. You have more power than you know. That's our show. Thank you.